For more on the 2024 run for the White House, let's bring in today's political panel. With us today is Colin Reed, a Republican strategist and co-founder of South End Hill Strategies, and Kristen Hawn, a Democratic strategist and former Blue Dog Coalition communications director. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Mike.
So things are getting a little feistier on the GOP side. A super PAC aligned with Governor Ron DeSantis taking aim at former President Trump after the former president called Florida the worst state. Now that super PAC is suggesting Mr. Trump should go move to California. There it is on the screen. That Mr. Trump should move to California to be with his good buddy, Governor Gavin Newsom. Kristen, what about that?
You know, I think it's interesting that that's what he's saying about Florida right now. With Governor DeSantis, I think it looks like he's kind of fizzling out kind of quickly. It's hard to take on the former president. He's got a loyal following, so we'll just have to see how this all plays out.
All right, here is former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, could be a potential candidate, not one yet, taking aim at Governor DeSantis. Let's play it.
I don't think Ron DeSantis is a conservative based on his actions towards Disney.
Colin, is that a sign that Governor Christie sees DeSantis as potentially being in the same lane as him?
Well, I think Governor Christie has realized and said that in order to take down Donald Trump, someone's going to have to do it and go at him hard. And if Governor Christie gets into the race, he could be the guy to do that. But right now, it's Donald Trump's at the top of the field, and everyone else is below him, including Governor DeSantis. I think it's way too early to be writing Governor DeSantis' political obituary. He hasn't even announced. He's leading the state that is in all ways thriving economically. People are getting in their moving vans, and they're picking up, and they're leaving places like California, and they're leaving places like New York for Florida for a reason, because he got COVID right, because his economy is booming. And those are the things that he's got a great story to tell should he become a candidate. But don't sleep on Governor Christie either. He's the most talented communicator on either side of the aisle since Bill Clinton in his prime back in the early 90s. And he could really take people by storm if he decides to get in this thing.
He's a brawler too, right?
He is. He's from Jersey.
Me too. Me too. Okay, so, Kristen, I'm curious about the timing of the president's announcement. There was talk that maybe it would come as late as this fall. Why now? Is RFK Jr. a factor? What about the Hunter Biden troubles? Is he jumping in now?
I think it's an anniversary of sorts of when he announced his first presidential run. I don't think the president's not reactive to things like that, so I think that would be misreading the room to say that he's responding to RFK's announcement.
Okay, so ahead of President Biden's expected announcement, let's look at the Quinnipiac poll. Biden v. Trump, 48 to 46. That being Mr. Biden in the lead. Biden, DeSantis, you have DeSantis 48, Biden 46. It's early, but how do you assess that, Colin?
By any demonstrable statistic or poll, Mike, Joe Biden starts off as a candidate for re-election in a really weak position, whether it's the general election or before that, the primary. You talked about RFK Jr. earlier. 14% of Biden 2020 voters are already with RFK, and he just got in the race a couple days ago. Democrats like to roll their eyes at him, but he's got a famous last name. He's the nephew of a former president, and he's someone that, can't be dismissed, but nor should anyone else be dismissed in a race against President Biden in a primary. And then you get to the general election, and President Biden's numbers, and you got 52% of your own party saying, please, somebody else, not this guy. That's a bad place to start.
Who do Democrats want to face?
I mean, I think going back to DeSantis, I think that he's got a major issue. If you look at the midterms and what happened with women voters and independent and center left, center right voters, the Roe decision, and that really made a difference. And I think that's going to play a huge part. And I think, you said you saw Governor DeSantis signing that bill and only putting out a photo at 11 p.m. As a communications person, I look at that and I go, okay, well, there's a reason for that, right? So I think that, any candidate that we face, I think the president will start talking about all of his accomplishments and be in a better position than probably he is right now.
Do you worry about abortion in 2024? Because you have Republicans wanting to win the base, obviously, but to win the general, you need some of those folks in the middle, too.
Well, the pro-life movement spent 50 years telling people that abortion was an issue that belonged at the state level. The Supreme Court overturned Roe, and it went back to the states, and now they've got to be very clear about where they go next. And should this stay at a state level? Should this be at a federal level? So the Republican Party has to get the messaging right, because the Democrats are very skillful at using that issue to distract and whitewash from their poor record on other issues. So, yes, no doubt it will be an issue. I think the Republican Party needs to get it right, and they can. And then once they do, they've got the entire other issue set on their side.
We have news this weekend about the Supreme Court stepping in on this drug related to abortion. Does abortion become a front burner issue next year, Kristen?
Yes, and I'll say that because if you looked at, there was a poll that Global Strategy Group did, and it was like, it was kind of like, what happened in the midterms? And what happened was the voters they trusted the Republicans more on jobs and the economy, and that was the #1 issue. But the Democrats really leaned into health care and this issue. And I'm telling you, like, as somebody who sits in the center left, it's very important to me, and it's very important to a lot of women across this country. So I think that it'll be a huge part of the discussion next year.
Okay, one more poll, the Fox poll, and it has Trump 54, DeSantis 24, Pence 6% of the three. Only Mr. Trump is a declared candidate so far. Colin, early? What's your read on that?
It's early, but there's no doubt President Trump has the momentum. He always did as the former presidential standard bearer and the former president. And the thin gruel indictment of a couple weeks ago really poured rocket fuel onto his campaign. But it is very early, and he's got to get out there. And I think you're going to see this support that's with Governor DeSantis. It will marshal between Governor DeSantis. If he falters, it'll go to somebody else. But there's a big swath of the party that wants someone new, wants a new direction as well. So it's just going to be incumbent on those candidates. And keep an eye on Chris Christie, because if he gets in this thing, he could be the one to start to marshal a lot of that support.
Kristen, do those numbers suggest that DeSantis or Christie or Pence or somebody really needs to take the fight at the former president?
I think at some point one of the candidates will have to, and I totally agree with you. Governor Christie is just, an incredible communicator, and it's very early. So you think, you look back and like Jeb Bush was the front runner. Who knows where we'll go? But I think at some point it's a primary. You've got to fight it out, and somebody's going to have to take the fight to the former president.
Kristen Hawn, Colin Reed, thanks so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.